I'm going to change the oil in this van, and I'm going to show you this really janky drain plug situation that we've got going on in there. Let's get started. So being a Honda, that's supposed to have a 17mm head for the drain plug. And this one, I think it's 14. And this is sealer, just to give you an idea of what we're working with. So this is a factory Honda crush washer on an aftermarket drain plug, and I'll see if I can get some images. So what's happened in the past on this? Somebody stripped the drain plug out altogether, and the pan was still okay, it just was missing its thread. And instead of doing it correctly and drilling a straight hole and putting a straight new set of threads in there to put a helicoil in and then use the factory size, they used a time cert, and it's crooked. When they drilled it and they cut the threads, it's crooked. So the time cert is crooked, meaning when this flange comes down flat, instead of it being totally flat, it's coming in at an angle and it doesn't seal at all. What makes things worse is that time cert is not flush with the surface of the pan. It's sticking out, and it's sticking out crooked. So I could fix it. I could take the pan off and drill it out and redo it or replace the pan. But I've just been using a lot of GM sealer, and it works. So the threads are solid. I mean, you can really crank down and tighten it up, and when it's tight, it still didn't seal. So the sealer is what I do, and that's what it is. I hate to have my hands dirty. Usually I wear gloves, but I'm in this new garage and I don't know what my gloves are. So I went to Advance. I get my oil at Walmart, and there was an Advance in the parking lot, and I usually go to O'Reilly or somewhere and get a little 6-pack or 5-pack of these crush washers for $5 or $6. Well, Advance had the crush washer I needed, but they wanted $7 for that. So much like I'm going to fix the crooked thread repair with GM sealer, I'm going to reuse this crush washer with sealer, and it'll be just fine. Now, would I send this over to somebody else to change my oil after I've done all this? No way. Would I do this to a customer's vehicle? I mean, if it was my mother and I knew I was going to get that oil change every time, maybe, but in a general, I would recommend that they fix it the right way. I'm going to go in there and clean off the surface, but then this is the sealer that I use. It's GM sealer. You can get it in the caulking tube, which dries out before I ever use it all. So I get it in these little short tubes. 88864346 is the GM part number on that. All right, let's put some sealer on here. Use a little key there. And give it a little bit there. And a little bit there. We'll put this on. I always like to turn it until I've got a full bead there, and then this is the part that's going to go up against the drain pan. Just put a little bit there, put a little bit there. And I always back this off a little bit, just a little, so it doesn't squirt. And we'll put that away. So that thing is still dripping a little bit. And what I like to do is I start it on that first thread, and then I just sop up the couple of little drips and then put it on. So next up is this oil filter. And so let's basically just move the drain so that it's right into there. And loosen that bad boy. See if I can loosen it by hand first. Nope. If I were still doing this every day for a living, yeah, I'd be able to do that by hand, but trick here is don't squeeze too hard, because if you do, you're going to punch a hole in that thing. Get yourself all dirty and gross. Nobody wants that. So just loosen it until it starts leaking a little. And then watch it for it to leak past the frame rail and make sure you're underneath the drip. And we are. So now I'm going to just loosen it a little more. And then I already done know I'm going to have to get my hand covered in grease and oil. Not grease, but oil. So I'll just do it. Again, I hate to get my hands dirty. I don't know why. I don't have gloves. I should have gloves, but I don't. The trick here is hold it up against the threads so that when it comes loose, it doesn't flip out of your hand and cause a splash. It could fall down or tip upside down or whatever. And then so just release it and then place it here. And you see all that oil? We just make sure, double check that it's all falling into my pan. And now I'll just set that up there and let me see if I can dry some of this gross oil off of my fingers. I hate it. But we're gonna go get the new oil filter and put it on there. Let's clean that off a little bit. So the oil I get Mobile One. I'll show it to you in a second. And the oil filter I get Mobile One. And it's a super high mileage because I don't stay on top of my oil change intervals. I always recommend 3,000 miles, 3 months, change it no matter what. But I don't do that. I've been using this super high mileage oil and I don't take it anywhere near as high as it says it can go, but that's what I do. Did they take that trash yet? No. And I use these until they're used up, so I'm going to set it down there, and when I put the new filter on, I'll wipe the frame rail with this. So before we talk about oil, let's talk about the draining. You know, I didn't mention a couple of very important things that I thought were self-explanatory, but now that I've done them, so let's pretend like this is the drain pan I've got over there. It's very similar. So if the drain plug is facing that way, I'm tempted to kind of like put this in the center of underneath the drain plug. But you don't want to do that. You want to have, the oil's going to come out that way when it comes out. So you want to have the end of the drain pan just right past where that plug starts. So that when you loosen it, and that oil pressure, just this a little tiny bit of pressure, it's going to spit that plug out of your hand down into the pan, and then the oil is going to fall into the pan. So if you have it up here, it might still hit in the pan, but right up on this edge and it'll splash out. So we want to try to make sure that there's going to be a couple of drips that come straight down. Those fall in the pan, but the main stream of oil hits closer to the center of the pan. So that's what I did there. I positioned the pan's end so that it was right even with where the drain plug was pointing out, and I positioned the pan so that where the drain plug was pointing, is where the oil was going to splash right into the center of the pan. And then I got it loose and it's where it was finger tight. Once it was finger tight, I just let it go and got my hand out of the way, because your hand can be right in front of it and just splash oil everywhere and no. So here's the oil I use. This is 520, but it's Mobil 1. It's full synthetic, but it guarantees for 25,000 miles. I'm not leaving that for 25,000 miles. I'm not going to tell you how far I'll leave it, because it's a lot longer than I would recommend to you. But I don't leave it for 25,000 miles. And then for this Odyssey van, J35, and for that RDX out there, which is also a similar V6, I use the Mobil 1 M1 110A that also has extended performance, 25,000 miles. So in theory, Mobil 1 is saying I could drive this car. I guess it takes us about 1.5 years to do 25,000 miles with no oil change. I'm not doing that. But this is what I use so that if I do miss an oil change interval, I don't have to feel too bad about it. Some of you are like, why are you taking that down before you've put oil in it? I've got my oil jug so that I can't close my hood. Make sure that you've done something to prevent you from starting the car or whatever before you put the oil in. I've got the oil jug, can't close the hood. That move I just did with my finger, try it. So the service manual says it takes 4.5 quarts. That's a 5-quart jug. There's a little graduation on the end. So as I get towards the end, I'm gonna try to leave what I think is about a half a quart and close enough. I will verify with the dipstick. And if you're touching a customer's car, before you touch the door handle, before you touch the keys or the dashboard to set the button, just go to the bathroom and wash your hands. This is my car. How do you think we did? So you start the engine, let it run for a little bit so that you know that the engine is fully oiled, and then let it sit and let the oil drain back for just a second, clean the dipstick, and let's see where we are. Okay, that's what it looks like. I'm seeing oil just below the crosshatch. So let's check it again. Now I see it. So it might be tough to see on the camera, but the level is right there. And so I'd say I got pretty darn close. What I'm gonna do is just put about a quarter of a quart in there. We'll check it again and we'll call it even. I just cover the end of my funnel because it'll drip everywhere if I don't. All right, you might not be able to see it, but it's just a little low. And by the time that drains back in there, we're gonna be right on. So this is not science. This is, you're gonna be doing this flat rate if you're a technician somewhere. It's good. If it's right there towards the top third of that crosshatch, as long as we're not over it, or like more than, a minuscule amount over it, the customer's going to be fine. If they pull that dipstick out and it's oiled up to there, you got to let some oil out. So the goal is to be in the top third of that crosshatch, and then or to just barely over it. There we go. That oil drained in there. You might not be able to see it, but it is right on the line. Before you close the hood, make sure that your dipstick is installed and that's all the way. Make sure that your oil cap is installed and it's a little snug. Everybody has accidentally left off a cap. One other thing is sometimes it's inevitable. Sometimes you spill some oil down the front of the engine. Just stop what you're doing. Forget about your flat rate. Forget about how many waders are in the drive. Clean it. Just clean it off and reset once it's cleaned. If you spill oil on the customer's engine, clean it off. So I do this at home. When I first started doing this, we would just dump the oil out. It's been a long time since then. So now these oil places have to take waste oil back. So what I'll do is I'll take that oil and I'll funnel it back into an empty oil jug. I've got a whole set for that. Got all these pitchers and all this stuff. And I'll dump that waste oil into that pitcher there. And then when I have an empty jug, now that one's got this much oil in it, so I'll transfer it to something else. And I'll just use that jug and a funnel to pour that oil back in the jug and then take it back to some auto parts store. They all have to take it. They have to take it. They make you sign your life away when they take it, like you're doing some kind of crime. And I don't know what that is. I guess it's to prevent people who are in the business of changing oil from taking all their oil back. But just sign the thing, take your oil back. The next thing and final thing that I have to do to this vehicle is reset the oil light. And then we'll be done. Oh, and I got to do an oil change sticker. I don't know if people are still doing the oil change sticker anymore because everything has an onboard computer. I still do the oil change sticker because I go over the interval that it recommends on the dashboard because of this ridiculous oil. I don't go 25,000 miles, but I go over. So I'm going to reset the oil light. I'm going to record the mileage that's on there and then create a new sticker. I just use masking tape or a note card, or I used to keep a roll of the oil change stickers from the dealership, but it's been a long time since I've been doing that. So I'm going to go reset the oil light. I'm going to give it a new sticker, and we're done. All right, so I did the oil light. What you do is you turn the key on, engine off. You press the dashboard stalk until the oil light indicator is on, and then you hold it solid after that for 10 seconds. So you press it until you get it onto that screen. And then once you're onto that screen, you press it again and hold it for 10 seconds until the whole thing starts to flash. Once it starts to flash, you release it and hold it again, and then it'll reset. Once you see it reset, then it's over. So that is the oil change on my old Honda Odyssey. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment, and I would appreciate it if you find this to be helpful. Please like and subscribe. Thanks.